The sun had barely risen over Oritamita town when the sound of tapping began, the gentle rhythmic knock of a carpenter at work. It came from the backyard of a modest bungalow belonging to Kunle Adebayo, a man known for two things: the honesty of his heart and the strength in his hands. People in Oritamita often said that if Kunle crafted a chair for you, it would carry your grandchildren before it even cracked. Life had not always been this quiet for him. Years ago, he lived in Lagos with his wife Tiniola, a bright woman whose laughter could fill a room. But fate had its own ideas. Shortly after giving birth to their first child, Morayo, illness took Tiniola away, leaving Kunle with a newborn and a heart full of questions. He had returned to Oritamita to escape the noise of grief, but grief, he learned, travels with you. Still, one thing anchored him: his daughter. Morayo became the center of his world, the reason he woke up early, the reason he worked late. He wanted her to grow in love, not lack, in strength, not sorrow. And so, from her earliest years, he built not just furniture but a future for her. By age 7, Morayo was already different from other children. Her father didn't raise her to wait for help. He raised her to solve problems. "Morayo," he would say while smoothing a plank of wood, "what do you think this will become?" And she would tilt her head thoughtfully. "A chair. Maybe. But if we cut here and shift this part." "Ah!" she would exclaim, eyes widening. "A shelf." He would smile proudly. "You see, you can bend life the way you bend wood. Nothing is fixed unless you accept it." Saturday mornings in the workshop became their ritual. While other girls played 10-10 by the roadside or plaited each other's hair, Morayo followed her father with a small notebook, jotting down ideas she believed would one day matter. Kunle watched her quietly, marveling at her curiosity. She reminded him so much of Tiniola: sharp mind, warm spirit, and eyes that saw beyond the ordinary. Sometimes, when she spoke, he felt as though the universe had returned a small piece of his wife through their daughter. But raising her wasn't simple. Kunle played both mother and father. He learned to braid her hair, though his first attempts looked like she had fought with the comb. He packed her lunchboxes with unevenly cut sandwiches and fruit slices shaped more by necessity than skill. He stitched torn uniforms at night when she slept, because he couldn't bear to send her to school untidy. People admired him, but admiration did not lighten the load. Some nights, after Morayo drifted off to sleep, Kunle would sit alone, staring at the worn photograph of his wife. "Am I doing enough?" he would whisper. Silence answered him. Yet every morning Morayo's laughter pushed doubt away. She ran to him with open arms, confident that her father, the one constant in her world, had everything under control. And that belief alone strengthened him. When Morayo turned 9, something happened that further shaped her future. A traveling carpentry exhibition came to town. Craftsmen displayed carvings, tables, sculptures, and wooden art pieces that looked too perfect to be real. Morayo wandered through the stalls with amazement until she stopped at one sculpture, a woman carved from a single block of wood, standing tall with her chin lifted proudly. "Daddy," she whispered, tugging his arm, "I want to be like her." Kunle knelt beside her. "Like a sculpture?" "No, like someone who stands on her own. Someone who doesn't bow." For a moment Kunle couldn't speak. She was only 9, yet she understood so much. He placed a hand gently on her shoulder. "And you will be. Because you are learning early that strength is not noise, it is foundation." From that day, he trained her with even greater intention. He taught her decision-making by letting her plan their weekly meals. He taught her responsibility by giving her charge over small household tasks. He taught her self-worth by reminding her that she never needed validation to shine. He taught her confidence by listening to her ideas as though they came from a boardroom. People laughed sometimes. "Kunle, why are you training her like a boy?" an elderly neighbor once asked. Kunle smiled politely. "I am not training her like a boy. I am training her like someone who will survive." That shut everybody up. The more she grew, the clearer it became. Morayo was not being raised to depend on the world. She was being raised to walk into the world with direction. And Kunle. He watched her with pride swelling in his chest. Every small victory, every correct decision, every confident step, reminded him that although life had taken his wife, it had given him a purpose. His daughter. His legacy. His future boss lady. By the time Morayo turned 12, people in Oritimita had gotten used to seeing her walk through town with a confidence far bigger than her age. Her steps were sharp, her eyes focused, and her mind constantly searching for ideas to stretch. She wasn't rude, neither was she proud. She simply carried the quiet assurance of someone raised to believe that problems were puzzles, not prisons. Kunle noticed that too. Some evenings they would sit outside under the pawpaw tree where her mother used to rest, and he would listen to her talk about school, classmates, her dreams, and anything her mind found interesting. One evening she said, "Daddy, why don't we make furniture that women will like? Soft colors, rounded edges, pretty designs." Kunle raised an eyebrow. "You think women don't like the furniture I make now?" She laughed. "They like it, but they would love it if it was stylish." Kunle leaned back, studying her proud expression. "Then draw your ideas. Let's see them." Her face brightened instantly. She grabbed her pencil and sketchbook, and before the moon came out fully, she had drawn a small collection of brightly colored stools, heart-shaped mirrors, rounded shelves, and soft-colored wardrobes. Kunle didn't just praise her. He built one of the stools the next morning. When he displayed it at the market, it sold in minutes. Customers asked, "Who designed this? It's different." Kunle pointed at Morayo, and although she blushed shyly, something powerful lit up inside her. She realized her ideas could become things. Her thoughts had weight. Her creativity had influence. And that awareness shaped the woman she would become. Secondary school brought new experiences, new challenges, and new opportunities. While other students were obsessed with fashion magazines, crushes, and after-school gist, Morayo used her spare time to sketch clothes, furniture, purses, and decorations. Teachers adored her because of her discipline. Classmates admired her because of her confidence. Even seniors respected her because she never acted intimidated. Her father had raised her to speak with clarity, not fear. One afternoon, the school held a debate competition. Although she was not part of the debate team, the teacher in charge suddenly pointed at her and said, "Morayo, fill in for Kemi. She's absent." The hall erupted with whispers. She had only 5 minutes to prepare. Kunle wasn't there physically, but his voice echoed in her mind. "If the moment calls you, answer it. Don't run." She stepped onto the stage, her heart beating fast but steady. The topic was, is education more important than skill? Ironically, it was a topic she lived every day. She spoke with balance, explaining how education builds knowledge and exposure, but skill builds survival and opportunity. She gave examples of carpenters, tailors, mechanics, photographers, all people who used their skills to feed their families. When she finished, the audience erupted into applause. The judges awarded her first place. Her principal called her a leader in the making. For Morayo, it wasn't just about winning. It was the realization that her father was right. A well-trained mind can stand anywhere. While Morayo blossomed, life continued testing Kunle quietly. His workshop's rent increased. The prices of wood doubled. Some customers delayed payment, making things tight. But he never let Morayo see his fear. Every night, after she slept, he calculated numbers, reviewed debts, and whispered prayers. Sometimes he asked himself, "Will she ever understand the sacrifices I made?" But deep down, he wasn't doing it for gratitude. He was doing it because he wanted his daughter to become a woman who didn't just shine, but stood strong. And he was succeeding. At 14, Morayo made her first attempt at running a business. Started one Sunday during church service. She noticed many girls admiring the hair bows she had sewn from leftover fabric scraps. After service, 3 girls approached her. "Did you buy it?" one asked. "No," she replied. "I made it. You can make for us." "Yes." How much? She smiled. 500 naira. By the next Sunday she had sold 15 bows. Her father watched her count her little earnings, pride glowing in his eyes. So what will you do with your profits? He asked. She grinned mischievously. Reinvest. Kunle's jaw dropped playfully. Who taught you that? You did, Daddy. Every time you buy wood, you tell me it's an investment. So I'll buy more fabric and make more bows. Kunle laughed so hard he almost choked. That's my daughter. That tiny business lit a spark inside her, a spark that would later grow into a blazing empire. One evening, after arranging her small earnings for the month, she looked at her father and said, Daddy, I promise you something. What is it? He asked gently. No matter how big I become, no matter how far life takes me, I will always remember who taught me how to stand. Kunle's throat tightened. He placed a hand on her head. You won't remember me because I taught you. You will remember me because of who you chose to become. And in that moment, the bond between father and daughter deepened. She wasn't just his child. She was his legacy, walking, learning, growing. A girl whose footsteps already sounded like those of a future boss. By the time Morayo clocked 16, she had blossomed into the kind of young woman people noticed immediately. Not because of beauty, though she had plenty of it, but because of the quiet boldness she carried everywhere she went. She didn't shriek for attention or compete with anyone. She simply moved with purpose, like someone who already understood that her life was headed somewhere meaningful. Her father observed it all silently. Every new confidence, every bold decision, every small win. He watched her rise, and though he rarely said it aloud, pride swelled inside him like a river after rainfall. As soon as she finished secondary school, the question of university came up. Many of her classmates wanted to study courses based on trend, mass communication, international relations, business admin, and others. But Morayo was different. She wanted a course that aligned with her skills, something that allowed her creativity to breathe. After much thought, she chose industrial design. It surprised many people, including some relatives who believed she should choose something more serious. One aunt said, "How will industrial design put food on your table? Do law or medicine? Something stable." Before Morayo could respond, Kunle spoke calmly. "Anything you build with passion becomes stable." The argument ended there. Kunle had never interfered with her growth. He guided her, but he never forced her. He believed deeply that a child succeeds best when given the freedom to pursue their own path. When she gained admission into the university, they celebrated quietly at home with puff-puff, fried chicken, and Kunle's small bottle of malt. "You're going to shine there," he said, raising his cup. She laughed shyly. "I'll try my best." "No," he corrected. "You'll do more than try. You'll lead." University life came with a rush of new faces, new cultures, new friendships, and a freedom so wide it could swallow a person whole if they weren't careful. But Morayo was prepared. Her father had raised her with boundaries and balance. She knew when to read, when to work, when to rest, and when to enjoy. She joined a small group of students who loved creativity, fashion designers, painters, sculptors, photographers. They often gathered under a big mango tree to sketch or brainstorm ideas. Within her first semester, everyone in the group noticed something unique about her. She combined creativity with leadership. She wasn't bossy, she was organized. She wasn't loud, she was intentional. One day, during a project for her department, her group struggled with their design plan. Everyone talked at once, scattered and uncertain. They were losing time and risking a failed grade. Then someone said, "Let Morayo coordinate us." She hesitated at first, but once she stepped forward, everything changed. She assigned roles, established a workflow, and even motivated the group when they got tired. Their project ended up being selected for the faculty showcase. The dean himself walked up to her afterward and said, "Young lady, leadership fits you." The words settled in her heart like seeds landing on fertile soil. Her old love, fashion, refused to stay small. One evening in her hostel, while arranging her wardrobe, she noticed scraps of Ankara fabric lying around. "Why not?" she whispered to herself. She turned the scraps into hair bows, simple purses, and cute key holders. When her roommates saw them, their excitement turned her room into a small marketplace. By the end of the week, she had made enough profit to restock. Soon, she created a name for her brand. Morayo, a soft, feminine fusion of her name and creativity. She opened an Instagram page, posted her items, and within a month, orders started pouring in from her department, from other faculties, and even from outside the university. Whenever her classmates asked, "How are you doing all this? School plus business?" she would smile and respond, "My father taught me that a woman must never wait for life to happen. She must build it." Midway through her second year, Morayo returned home for a short break. She found her father working in the workshop, bent over a piece of wood, sweat on his brow but satisfaction in his eyes. "Daddy, I'm back," she called gently. Kunle turned, and his entire face brightened. "Ah, my daughter. Welcome." He hugged her tightly, his embrace warm and familiar. As they talked, she noticed his hands, slightly rougher, slightly more tired. "Daddy, are you resting well?" she asked. He smiled dismissively. "I'm fine." But she saw through him. Age was creeping in quietly. Responsibility had weighed on him for too many years. Later that night, she sat with him on the wooden bench outside. "Daddy," she said softly, "I want to grow big in life, not so I can show off but so you can finally rest." Kunle looked at her carefully, emotion flickering in his eyes. "My daughter," he said, voice thick, "seeing you become who you are, that is my rest." They sat in silence, watching the stars sprinkle light across the sky. For the first time, Morayo felt a deep shift inside her, a stronger determination to honor the sacrifices of the man who raised her with both hands and heart. When she returned to school, Morayo expanded her business to include tote bags and custom outfits. She researched branding, customer service, pricing, and marketing. Her friends playfully called her "Boss Lady in Progress." What they didn't know was that she wasn't just progressing. She was becoming the woman her father trained. Becoming the leader her teachers foresaw. Becoming the visionary she once admired as a 9-year-old girl looking at a wooden sculpture. Her journey was just beginning. But destiny was already watching her with interest. By the time Morayo graduated from the university, something remarkable had already taken shape. She wasn't just a student with a small business. She was a brand. Morayo had become popular on campus, and even lecturers secretly bought her tote bags and accessories for their wives and daughters. Her final year project, a collection of eco-friendly fashion pieces made from recycled fabric, had gone viral on social media. But graduation came with a new kind of pressure. Where most graduates saw freedom, she saw responsibility. Where others saw celebration, she saw a doorway into something bigger. And at the center of it all was her father, Kunle, who had walked with her from childhood, steady and unwavering. The day she returned home with her degree, the entire neighborhood celebrated. Children ran around shouting her name, elderly women hugged her tightly, and her father stood at the doorway, blinking fast to stop the tears. "You did it, Morayo," he said quietly. "No, Daddy," she whispered as she hugged him. "We did it." She noticed again how much he had aged. His shoulders slouched a little more, his steps slower, but his mind was still sharp and his smile still full. Throughout that week, he showed her every corner of the workshop, as though preparing her for something she didn't yet understand. "Daddy, why are you showing me all these tools again?" she teased. He sighed softly. "One day, whether you like it or not, you will need to know where everything in here belongs." He paused. The weight of those words settled on her. Kunle wasn't asking her to be a carpenter. He was preparing her for leadership again. He wanted her to understand systems, order, structure, and the discipline that built everything she had become. A month after graduation, Morayo made a bold announcement during dinner. "Daddy, I want to officially expand Morayo into a full business. A real brand with an office, staff, structure, everything. Kunle looked at her calmly. Have you planned? She smiled. I have. Market research, cost breakdown, branding strategy, customer demographics. I've written everything down. He took the notebook from her, flipping through the pages slowly. He was stunned. My daughter, he said, this is better than some company proposals I've seen. She laughed, embarrassed but proud. Daddy, I learned from you. You don't just build chairs, you build plans. He nodded with satisfaction. Then go ahead. Start. I'll support you where I can. And she did. Starting a business in Nigeria was not for the faint-hearted. There were setbacks, unexpected expenses, and bureaucracy that drained both strength and patience. But Morayo had something many young entrepreneurs lacked: discipline drilled into her from childhood. She woke up before sunrise to sew orders. She attended business seminars. She handled customer service personally. She partnered with student influencers to model her designs. She created packaging so beautiful that customers posted about it online. Soon Morayo wasn't just a name. It was a presence. Her Instagram page grew from hundreds of followers to thousands. Orders doubled, then tripled. She hired her first staff member, a shy but hard-working girl named Kikalomo. When Kikalomo asked, "Madam, why did you choose me?" Morayo answered, "My father taught me to lift others the way life lifted me." Within a year, she had a small office space decorated with soft colors, warm lighting, and inspirational quotes. People visiting the office would say, "This place looks like your spirit. Calm but powerful." She always smiled politely, but deep inside she would think of her father, his teachings, his sacrifices, his quiet molding of her destiny. Though she worked hard, she was not the type to bury herself in stress. She believed in balance. She celebrated wins, traveled with friends, attended events, and enjoyed the soft life she could afford, not recklessly, but with gratitude. Her father would tease her. "Boss lady, when you finish flying around Lagos, remember you have a business." She would laugh. "Daddy, even CEOs take small breaks." But what made her different from many young adults was simple. She never forgot her roots. Fun was just a seasoning. Her foundation remained strong. Every strong person eventually faces a moment that shakes them. For Morayo, it began with a faulty supplier. She had paid a large amount for materials that never arrived. The number was switched off. The address was fake. Her first major business loss. The shock hit her hard. For hours she sat in her office, staring blankly at the walls. When she told her father, she expected anger, or disappointment, or a lecture. But he only said, "If you built it once, you can build it again. Loss is not the end, it is a lesson." He wasn't rescuing her. He wasn't offering money. He was offering wisdom. She wiped her tears, took a deep breath, and returned to work the next day. She contacted new suppliers, restructured her budget, created a new marketing strategy, and even launched a discount week to regain customers' trust. Within 2 months, Morayo recovered, stronger and more refined. Her staff couldn't believe how calm she remained through the storm. When they asked how she did it, she said, "My father taught me not to fall apart when life shakes the table." At 24, people started calling her Madam Morayo, the creative force, Morayo boss lady. But titles meant little to her. What mattered was walking back home every evening, seeing her father sitting outside on the same wooden bench, and hearing him say, "Welcome, my daughter. How was work?" And each time she answered with a quiet smile, "It was good, Daddy. I'm becoming who you raised me to be." She didn't yet know that life had one more test ahead, one that would shape the final chapter of her journey. At 27, Morayo stood at the height of everything she had once dreamed of. Morayo had expanded into a flourishing fashion and lifestyle brand with 2 staff members, a small showroom, and a growing online presence that kept surprising her every week. Her face appeared on flyers for women in business conferences, and she often received invitations to speak at youth empowerment programs. Life looked beautifully arranged. But life, as always, had one more lesson to teach. It began subtly, with her father coughing more often than usual, sitting down more frequently, and pausing longer between tasks. He brushed it off each time. "It's just old age," he insisted. But Morayo knew her father too well. She didn't want to panic, but she couldn't ignore the heaviness sitting in her chest. She convinced him to go for tests, and although the doctors found nothing alarming, they advised him to rest more. "Rest," he chuckled. "Have you ever seen a carpenter retire?" But she insisted, pleaded, and eventually, he agreed to reduce his workload. Still, something in her shifted. She realized she had entered a new chapter of adulthood, the one where roles slowly reversed. The child becomes the helper, the student becomes the supporter, and the person who once held your hands begins to lean on yours. In response, Morayo rearranged her life. She hired an additional staff member, delegated more tasks, and adjusted her work schedule so she could spend more evenings at home. Sometimes she cooked for her father, insisting he rest on the wooden bench that had heard so many of their life conversations. Kunle would tease her. "You're treating me like egg. Am I that old?" She laughed lightly. "Yes, Daddy. Sit down." He pretended to grumble, but secretly, he enjoyed the attention. Watching his daughter, confident, successful, grounded, brought him a kind of peace few men ever find. One evening as they ate dinner, he said something unexpected. "Morayo, you've become everything I prayed for." She looked up surprised. "Daddy, I'm still learning." "Yes," he nodded. "But the strength you carry, it didn't come from school or business. It came from who you chose to be." She felt her throat tighten. "That strength came from you." He smiled gently. "No, I merely showed you the door. You walked through it." Months later, Morayo received a life-changing email. An international fashion and craft exhibition in South Africa had selected her as one of the 5 young African innovators to showcase their work. Her hands trembled as she read it over and over. This was big, very big. When she told her father, his eyes shone with pride. "My daughter, look at your life. From scraps of fabric to international recognition." She laughed joyfully. "Daddy, we did this." "No," he said softly, taking her hands. "You did this. I only held the ladder." Preparations began immediately, sourcing materials, planning designs, organizing logistics, and preparing her team. She wanted everything perfect, not because of the event, but because she wanted her father to see the full bloom of the seed he planted years ago. The house was quiet. Kunle sat outside, the evening breeze brushing his face. Morayo joined him, her head resting gently on his shoulder. "Are you nervous?" he asked. "Yes," she admitted. "But I know I'll be fine." "You will," he agreed. "Because you are not going there with fear. You are going with foundation." They sat in comfortable silence until he added, "When you were small, I worried I would fail you. I worried I didn't know enough. But today, seeing the woman you've become, I know I didn't fail." She felt a tear slip down her cheek. "Daddy, you didn't just succeed, you built me." He squeezed her hand softly. "Then go and shine, my daughter. Let the world see what a well-trained woman looks like." South Africa welcomed her warmly. Her designs stood out, bold, colorful, and rich with Nigerian culture. Judges praised her craftsmanship, other designers admired her creativity, and attendees bought her pieces eagerly. Reporters interviewed her. "What inspired your brand?" they asked. She smiled. "My father. He taught me to build things not just with my hands but with my mind." Her story touched many hearts. On the final day of the exhibition, she won the Youth Creative Excellence Award. As she held the glass plaque, her first thought was simply, "Daddy." When the plane landed in Lagos, she felt changed. Not because of the award, but because she knew she had stepped into the version of herself her father always saw, the woman she was destined to be. As she entered their compound, Kunle walked out slowly. She raised the award high, laughing joyfully. "Daddy, we won." He hugged her tightly, whispering, "I always knew you would fly." She held him close, imagining the journey behind them, the wooden stools, the workshop lessons, the sacrifices he never mentioned, the doubts he never voiced. Everything she had become was rooted in him. That night, they sat on the wooden bench once more. No words. Just gratitude lowing silently between them. A child trained with love, discipline, and confidence grows into an adult who can stand in any room without shaking. Independence is not arrogance. It is responsibility. Strength is not loudness. It is consistency. And true legacy is not property. It is character planted in the heart of another. Kunle did not leave his daughter riches. He left her something far more powerful. A foundation that turned her into a boss lady who could build her own future, and rebuild it if life ever tried to break it. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, kindly give it a thumbs up, tell us what you think of the story and where you are watching from in the comment. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you never miss a new upload. Bye for now.